Let's speak to the Association of Mineworkers and Construction Unions President Joseph Mathunjwa. Mr. Mathunjwa, thank you so much for your time this evening. What is your response to the revised offer made by the mine?
Thank you and good evening to your viewers. Our members of AMCO and National Union of Mineworkers have rejected the so-called revised offer of Sibanye, and of which they are correct to reject it. How can he offer 850, whereas he took that amount from their living out allowance in order to subsidize the salaries?
And when you talk about you're talking about the CEO, Mr. Neil Froneman?
Yes, remember, the Sibanye is run by Neil Froneman. Is his vegetable garden. He do as it pleases him. And then you look at this 300 million that he is earning, of which if you calculate it, per second, Froneman is earning 215 rand per annum, more than the national minimum wage of 23 rand per hour. So by a minute, Froneman is earning 1,500. And with this 300 million, he can employ and pay 2,315 workers at the rate of 10,800 a month. Can you imagine if you can just remove his salary, you can drastically reduce unemployment in this country. And hence we are calling that we must introduce a policy that kept the salaries of these CEOs, because these minerals are meant for the nation, are not meant for individual or foreign direct investors.
And I was going to talk to you about those reports that emanated yesterday, talking about his, of course, what he pocketed as is based on the annual report. I'm keen to find out how your members responded to these reports that he got 300 million rand last year.
It did. Hence, they rejected this offer that he put forward. And the reasoning is that he's not saying they don't have money. He's just saying it's not sustainable. When he referred to sustainability, it's not sustainable to secure his next 300 million in the next financial year. And you could see clearly how these workers, are being treated. The former Goldfields workers, they do get some shares. And then those shares that they receive, they were paid about 50 rand, 17 rand, as compared to the millions that are being paid to the executive. And therefore, it shows clear that every worker who's been employed 10 years ago after Goldfields, they are not receiving any of those shares. But even himself, he was employed after the Goldfields merger. So therefore, you could see clearly that Froneman is just the Prime Minister of South Africa, is do as it will. And then how does they justify the 300 million, whereas Sibanye Stillwater is the worst mine when coming to health and safety, is a top mine that has killed many breadwinners, but instead of that, they are compensating him with 300 million. How do you justify this salary?
And Mr. Mathunjwa, I was going to ask you that because this is not the first time these pay disparities emerge, and you talk about this cap that you say must now be put on the salaries. But I'm keen to find out from you, what do you think is enabling this to go on? Because we continue to see the pay disparities between the executives as well as those who are going underground.
I think it's more of the economic policies of this country as a free market, neoliberal economic policies that is enabling this situation to continue. You'll remember even the mining charter is toothless because it's a code of good conduct. It cannot be enforced either way. If they are approached about the mining charter, which seek to transform the industry and bring changes to the livelihood of the workers and the hosting communities, but the upper hand they do have because you cannot enforce it. Hence, AMCO was proposing to the government that take the very same mining charter and put it as under the MPRDA in order to be enforceable. And then that hasn't happened. So they will continue looting the wealth in the expense of the workers or the South Africans at large.
It doesn't look like the mine is willing to move an inch here, because through a statement, through its, James Wellstead, who's the spokesperson yesterday, says that it believes that the offer is fair. It takes into account all inflationary costs and is in the interest of all stakeholders, as well as taking into account the sustainability of the SA Gold operations. Listening to this, it doesn't look like they're going to budge to your demands. What happens now?
Firstly, the strike is called by our members. I think that must be clear. It's not president of NUM or president of AMCO or all our executive structures. It's called by the members. The members, they've told us clear in the last round of tabling this revised offer of Sibanye that they will continue with the strike. And what is doing now is issuing some forms to the workers to vote whether they are still in favor of the strike, is giving them free data. I mean, how on earth can you do such a thing? It's not sustainable when you have to pay 1,000 increment for the whole month, whereas Froneman is earning 1,500 per minute. How can you justify this? They are earning more than the state president of this country. It shows clearly that in this democracy, we only voted to have a black president, black ministers, and all those kinds of rights that does not bring food on the table. At the end of the day, the economic structure is still the same as of the apartheid. Nothing has changed. You remember, you were covering the massacre of Sibanye Stillwater massacre in Marikana. The workers were complaining about this slave salary. At the end of the day, the state and the business connived and killed workers. 44 mine workers were killed. They were not fighting for anything except, the economic, emancipation, and they were killed. We saw in 2018 in the 4-month strike of Sibanye, still the state was conniving with Sibanye, servicing the Sibanye, Nil Froneman servicing the SABC, vehicle in ready to go and break the strike. So you could see this toxic relation of the state and the private sector is still continuing to enslave black majority of workers who are toiling, who are subsidizing with their lips for Froneman to benefit. Look at the at the employment equity. Froneman has employed his children in the highest position without any experience. No one is talking about those things.
Mr. Mathunjwa, pardon me. Unfortunately, I have to cut you there. But let's speak again, because we need to know exactly what now happens. Because as you say that it's your members that have called the strike. So will you go back to the table? Are you deepening the strike, or what's going to happen? But let's leave it there for now. And we do hope to get another opportunity to speak to you, understanding what happens next. That was AMCU President Joseph Mathunjwa.